Thank you. Happy Easter. I just found out it was Easter, which is interesting to contemplate what the resurrection might mean in a metaphorical sense. And, really I feel like it points to the essence of our practice, being born again in each moment, being fresh, being here. Waking up. Jesus awoke from the dead after an intense period of pain and after a long period of rest. I want to read a little quote here. This is a book that Hogan just gave me. He told me to read a few pages, and I did read those few pages, and this is from it. I think the title is absolutely amazing, though. Awareness, the Perils and Opportunities of Reality. That's the title of the book. Wow. He says, and the author's name is Anthony de Mello. And the chapter is called On Waking Up. Spirituality means waking up. Most people, even though they don't know it, are asleep. They're born asleep, they live asleep, they marry asleep. They breed children in their sleep, they die in their sleep without ever waking up. They never understand the loveliness and the beauty of this thing we call human existence. You know, all mystics, Catholic, Christian, non-Christian, no matter what their theology, no matter what their religion, are unanimous on one thing: that all is well. All is well. Though everything is a mess, all is well. Strange paradox, to be sure. But tragically, most people never get to see that all is well because they are asleep. They are having a nightmare. So here we are, waking up together. We just finished a retreat where I think the theme was waking up, even though it wasn't titled that. And one person this morning at our closing circle was reflecting on an advice that Hogan gave him one day when he went into Sanzen, and he was talking about an issue he was having with a woman. And Hogan said, well, she isn't here right now. And he said, well, that's the worst. He didn't help me at all. That's the worst advice ever. I didn't get any insight into my issue. But then he was driving home and saw that his mind was ruminating about maybe this issue or another issue, not sure, and then realized, that they're not here right now. And isn't that like that, right? And the same with, we wake up from a nightmare, from a dream. Oh, wow, that's not really real. The same with our stories, right? We're just caught in the story, and it's actually not even happening. So we have this opportunity to wake up to now, to the beauty, to the wonder, to the joy, to the okayness. As Chosen was leading us during meditation, the peace that's always here under that story. And before I pass it on to Soten, I'm just going to say a few more things, including I want to share a few quotes from the Gospel of Thomas, which isn't in the Bible, but some people think that it's the Gospel of the disciple Thomas, and it was written, I guess it was written 100 years after Christ, which is a lot more close to the Buddha's teachings, which were written like 500 years after his death. Jesus said, "It will not come by waiting for it. It will be a matter of saying, here it is. There it is." I'm sorry. It will not be a matter of waiting for it. It will not be a matter of saying, here it is, there it is. Rather, the kingdom of the Father is spread out upon the earth, and men do not see it. So the treasure that we're looking for, as we all know, is right here. Is this breath, is this breathing, is this listening? And then I'll read one more here. Whoever finds the interpretation of these sayings will not experience death. Jesus said, "Let him who seeks continue seeking until he finds. When he finds, he will become troubled. When he becomes troubled, he will be astonished." So I feel like that's just a acknowledgement of our path. That it's not easy to wake up. Later in the awareness book, he says, in that chapter, he says, waking up is uncomfortable. Hogan was encouraging us during the retreat to enter difficulty, to see difficulty, bad news, as good news, right? Waking up is uncomfortable, You are nice and comfortable in your bed. It's irritating to be woken up. It's irritating. So this morning I was talking to Soten, and he said two things. One thing, I said, I didn't think we were going to have very much time to prepare for this talk, because we had, one scheduled event after the next. And I said, well, we could do it during Zazen. And he said, but I feel like the talk is in the room of Zazen. And if I'm outside of it writing the talk, I'm not there to receive the talk. So that was just a beautiful acknowledgement of this truth, that it's here. And we don't trust that, though. So we're always in this incessant need to plan and figure and prepare and remember, and it's stressful. It's stressful. So one theme we were talking about during the retreat was entrustment. Entrustment. And not just entrustment to that peace, but entrustment to whatever is arising. To this arising, if maybe it hurts, but we trust that it is exactly the path, that entering whatever is here is exactly what we need, what is needed, what is. And so then he told me, well, before we do anything with a talk, he said, I'm depressed. And I wrote this song for myself to help me when I'm depressed. And I need to play it before. So he played it and I listened and I said, please, can you play that for our talk? And so, could you play that? Or do you want to say something first?
Well, I guess now's the time.
Here, let me transfer.
But I just want to point out that one line that struck me deep that you read from the Gospel of Thomas about when you find something, you become troubled. So it was worded something like that. So yeah, I'll play the song now, but I'm really interested in what that means. And maybe after I play that song, a couple people who have some understanding or so a couple people that touched could share something, because that's really interesting. I don't know about this.
Okay.
It'll get all distorty.
Will the online people be able to hear his singing without that? Probably.
Through this one here, yeah?
Okay.
Yeah. Levi is here, who was in residency with both of us years and years ago, and I knew he was coming today, and a memory struck me this morning when I was feeling particularly shut down, of a time I crossed his path in the residence area, said hi, and Levi stopped and said, "Did you just say hi to me?" And then I realized the place that I'd been in the last month, just oblivious to people around me and totally occupied with internal suffering and not capable of empathy. And that's really, really nasty. And that's the space that we work with. And it's very, very uncomfortable. Yes, when we wake up from a nightmare, all of a sudden this world is what fills us. But I don't know about other people. There's still that deep underlying current that we had been filled with throughout the night that's still there, like a deep ocean body. Last night I had this vivid dream pertinent to what I've been working with over the last day. I was walking through this lovely bamboo corridor on a trail, wondering if I'd been there before. Little glimpses of familiarity in objects. And I turned around, and then outside of this little fence of bamboo was a whole stampede of massive animals. And although they were on the other side of the bamboo, I could feel my vulnerability, and I could feel what it would be like to be one of the things that was getting mowed over by this stampede. The sound, the mass everywhere, feeling a hoof just going into my skin, into my internal organs, and then recognizing this gruesome experience as an equally valid part of being a living being, right? Not just death, but gruesome. And how real and equally valid that was to feeling like I'm experiencing exalted states of consciousness while drinking my pu'er tea and consuming my dark chocolate in the morning before Zazen. The range of life is just massive. So I'll share this with you. One more thing that I'll say, because I in talking about falling asleep, I specifically wanted to talk about the phenomenon of really shutting down. And for those of you who are more familiar with that psychological tendency, like in polyvagal theory, for instance, which I know hardly anything about, we have fight or flight, and then when those don't become available, then we get the freeze response, which is basically, I'm dying, which is awful. And to come out of that then fight and flight become available. But we have to come out of that. And I remember a time at the breakfast table when a Sangha member who was a therapist received the common question, for whom is meditation not helpful? And his response was, well, of the three defensive mechanisms that we label, fight, flight, or freeze, someone who is in the midst of a frozen response, that's where meditation is maybe a dangerous practice, because it is enacting their defensive patterns. So, I felt very stuck in my own frozenness, and really wanted to drop something from a place of clarity that could help wake me up in the future. So this is 10 years later, and I mostly remember it, but a song really isn't a thing to be remembered anyways. It's alive, so it will be what it is now. Unload the gun, forgotten one, back against the broken wall. Come to me honestly. The night's here and it doesn't matter now. Living in shadows under the rain, she loves to sing her ruby tune. While crescent eyes sing their lullabies that will sing your rose to bloom. There's no evil deceiver, no one to blame, and I will not deceive me. Lovely one, compassionate one, these lonely hands' demands are small. Walk with me as we breathe. We can be supposed to be. Wear me away.
close with a poem. This is from the First Free Women. It's poems inspired by the early Buddhist nuns. Farmers turn up the soil, plant seeds and wait. All by itself, water pours down from the sky and turns earth into food. After all these years sleeping on the ground, waking up before dawn and begging for every meal, where's my harvest? Late one evening, I was washing my feet after another long day of sitting and walking. The water poured over my feet and onto the ground. I let my mind go, and it flowed downhill with the water towards my little hut. I went inside, sat on the bed, and lowered the wick of the lamp. And all by itself, the flame went out.